Welcome to this stateless codecast. This is episode number 51 of our series nerddice.com, where we build a Ruby on Rails app to manage tabletop role-playing. And as you can see, in terms of the commit history, it's been roughly a year and a half, maybe a little bit more, since we've committed to this repository. There have been some videos that have come out where we've dealt with the entity diagram and how we plan to set up the models and tables and all that stuff. That can be found in the wiki here on data model and by watching the previous videos. What happened to my data model? All right, so there we go. It's a pretty complex entity diagram, but we're going to now start dusting off the code here and getting the app updated to the latest versions of Ruby and Rails and all of the dependencies that are associated with this. So in the intervening time since this last commit, this if you go to the Gemfile.lock here, you see we're on version 7.0.7.2 currently. Ruby since then has released version 7.1, version 7.2, and version 8.0 of Rails. So now we've got essentially 3 upgrades to make. There are some resources that we're going to use here. The Ruby on Rails upgrading guide, which provides good general advice about upgrading and then kind of provides the specific changes in watch items for upgrading to each of the different versions. The point versions of Ruby on Rails doesn't use traditional semantic versioning. So as we look at the changes and steps needed to upgrade from 7.0 to 7.1, they are far more involved than upgrading from 7.1 to 7.2 or from upgrading 7.2 to 8.0. So that the kind of most of what I expect the breaking changes to be will be involved in that move from 7.0 to 7.1. In addition to that, the most important change in terms of our dependencies that I'm aware of is that Tailwind CSS has upgraded from major version 3 to major version 4. I have done this in one of my kind of learning apps where I'm going through the agile web development using Ruby on Rails 8, which is still in beta, but I did this back in February, so I'll kind of use that as a guide when we do that, and it'll probably be the first thing that we do. I don't know in advance how long this is going to take, how many videos I'll break it up into, so there may be times where it seems like I'm talking in the context of one video and I've clipped it into or split it into 2, and I will try to, as best as I can, add in independent introductions and kind of set these things up as best I can, but I can't make guarantees that it'll be perfect. We leave the mistakes in our videos anyway. So, and if you have more questions about that, I've got a whole Why Stateless Code playlist, and one of the whys is why we leave mistakes in the videos. So I'll link that in the show notes. So let's get started here. We have an issue in our GitHub repository for the upgrade, and this is the basic pattern I think I'm going to follow. My guess is I'm going to move the GitHub action update probably a little earlier in the process, so I'll probably drag that up to whenever we make the change there. In the Nerddice Rubygems series, so this is nerddice.com, Ruby on Rails app. I also have a Nerddice gem, which is about rolling polyhedral dice. We made this upgrade from checkout V2 to V4 back in March of 2025. And that's version 2 is deprecated. So we're just going to upgrade our version in our GitHub actions. And now in Ruby on Rails 8, you have a default GitHub actions file. So we'll compare kind of what we had previously to what comes with Rails 8, kind of take the best of both and go from there. So the first thing we're going to do is upgrade Ruby to the latest version. So if we are in the directory here, so if we do ruby-v, we can see we're on 3.2.2. If we go to the Ruby language site, we can see that the latest released version of Ruby is 3.4.3. So we're going to try to make that upgrade first, keeping, to the extent possible, the gems in the gem file the same as possible. And then we're going to isolate the Tailwind upgrade, and then we'll upgrade the rest of the bundle. So let's start with all the different places. So we've got now, earlier in this series, when we installed Ruby on Rails, we used RVM. I have a recent development environment setup video and a GitHub gist where I've moved away from RVM and NVM to use mise for that. So I've got this file. I don't have it committed yet to the repository, but there are going to be a bunch of places where 3.2.2 exists, and we're going to kind of ferret those out and change those. And then my guess is I'm going to have to run bundle update bundler to make sure that I'm using the correct version of bundler. And then we'll tackle Tailwind CSS and then start upgrading the rest of our dependencies. So the first thing I'm going to do is we'll do a git status here. We are on the main branch. It is currently our only local branch, so we'll switch to a new branch for this work. We'll do git switch -c. Even though this is mostly tech debt in terms of how you classify it, I'll still call it a feature. Upgrading to a new Rails version is kind of a half and half feature and tech debt sort of thing. Call it upgrade Rails 8. And now we're going to go in and find all the places where 3.2.2 is used in our repo. Stop replacing it. Okay. So our gem file, and we are upgrading to Ruby 3.4.3, which is the current version here. We go to ruby-lang.org. We will see that Ruby 3.4.3 is the latest version. That's what we want to target and replace 3.2.2 with. So 4.3, 3.4.3, 3.4.3, and then I think I've also got it in my GitHub workflow. While we're at it, we'll hit this checkout. It's the only time it's used. We'll make that version 4 and upgrade the Ruby version to 3.4 here. The double check I don't have 3.2 without the third patch version of semantic versioning. Rubocop, we want to upgrade you. Gemfile.lock will handle here. And then the README. Okay, that is still valid in terms of the documentation, so we don't need to worry about that. So now we'll do ruby-version, and we've already got it installed. If I were here in Ruby 3.4.3 were not installed on my system, I would still use that same command, mise use Ruby 3.4.3. Mise would warn me that that version is not installed, but I would use that and mise would download and compile that version of Ruby. It, on my system, takes a little bit more than a minute to make that install. So that's where we are now. Now I should be able to hit clear here, do null update bundler. Looks like Postgres needs an update. So let's see what changed in our Gemfile.lock. Looks like Nokogiri got added back in to the mix here, and then Ruby version and bundler version upgraded, which is what we want here. The next step would be to see if our system tests will pass here, or our whole set test suite. So we'll hit clear and we'll try a Rails test all. Oh, and we've got an error here. Obstruct was loaded from the standard library, but will no longer be OpenStruct, OStruct. Cannot load mutex. That is let me see if a Rails DB test repair will succeed here. No such file, bigdecimal. So there are two particular gems that are mentioned in the errors here, and we've got minitest and bootsnap. So what I'm going to do here is, the latest version of 7.0 is 7.0.8.7, and I'm going to hope that upgrading to the latest version of 7.0 will resolve any issues related to deprecations and dependencies changing between Ruby 3.2 and Ruby 3.4. So I'm going to go into my gem file, and we're going to upgrade this from 7.0.4 to 7.0.8. See what else is locked at a version. Bootsnap is not locked at a version. If that still fails, I'll do bundle update bootsnap and bundle update minitest. But we'll try this first. Bundle is updated. And we're still failing a DB test prepare. version stayed the same. We'll try this again, and we are still failing out here, this time with a different error. So before it was about bigdecimal, now we have upgraded our error to logger severity. All right, so I found an issue on Rails that is marked as closed that kind of talks through this issue. So it looks like it's fixed on 7.1 and ongoing. That doesn't help us get our 7.0 tests passing. There are a couple different things that people tried in order to do this. One is updating concurrent-ruby in the bundle, which I'm going to try first. And then the second is to explicitly require logger before other gems, which I would, if I do that, I'm going to have to back it back out when I upgrade to Rails 7.1. So that's kind of plan B. So let's take a look at our Gemfile.lock here. Current Ruby 1.3.5. That's already been updated. Let's take a look. Looks like I've got to downgrade that back to 1.3.4. So that will also be something I'll have to back out, but I think it's less bad a temporary option than adding require code in the app outside of the gem file. So we're going to, actually, I might just be able to hack the Gemfile.lock. Which again is not a best practice, but if it lets us get through the build, then we know we're going to be upgrading away from it in today-ish. So we're going to see if that solves the issue. We'll do a bundle install. And see. We're still running into issues with bigdecimal. I'm just going to temporarily add that to my gem file as well. So have a, doesn't look like it has an underscore. Try another bundle install. And we're still down. All right. No longer. Mutex M. We'll do that one too. All right, these are all deprecation warnings, but I think we may have successfully ran the process without it erroring out. We'll try a We'll try the fast version. Nope. What now? All right, so it looks like there's another similar dependency, DRB, that needs to be added here. So we'll see if solving that brings us a new error of something that was removed from the standard library. Oh, I should have done. All right, here we go again. Hey, our tests are passing. Now let's do test all. Oh, we're getting some failures now. So it only gave us 6 errors. We'll take a look at each of these. So I had 6 errors out of all those tests, and they were all related to unsuccessful command executed for trying to send requests to Google APIs. So maybe Google APIs were down for a couple seconds. It succeeded on most of them, but failed on 6. And then I tried rerunning it and it passed. So I'm going to try rerunning it again on camera and see if we can consistently trust that it's passing. And it did. So that passed. We'll do now bundle exec rubocop. Unknown Ruby version. So we'll have to walk that back in our rubocop.yml and then return it to version 3.4 when we update the rest of the bundle, excluding Tailwind. So, and it's okay to target a Ruby version that's different than the one that you've installed, I believe. So. One offense detected. Gems should be sorted in alphabetical order within their section. We'll just autocorrect that. It's temporary anyway. And we're back to no offenses. So I think we're going to commit here, push this commit to our branch, make sure that the GitHub action succeeds, and kind of call this a video. And then we'll pick up in the next one with trying to upgrade Tailwind from 3 to 4. And then we'll start working and continuing down the path to Rails 8.0. So we'll take a look at our Git status here. Our diff. This all matches what we expected. And that's it. So we'll do a git add dot here, git commit, write my message. Just a note here. So in previous versions, videos in this series, I did git commit -S. I now have that signing of commits enabled by default. So I no longer need to do that command when committing. All right, I've got my commit message here. I'll save and close that. And now I'll try to push to my branch, which should trigger the GitHub Actions build. And then if that succeeds, then we will adjourn this video and move to our subtask for Ruby version to done and continue on our journey in the next video. So git status here. We're going to push to this branch, git push-u to the name of the branch. Now we can just use git push. Subsequently, we don't have to specify the branch name. It needs to be to origin. One remote rejected. Fatal error in commit refs. I don't think I've ever seen that before. It might be that I haven't set the remote origin since pulling this, but no, that succeeded. We'll try it again. Who knows? So now we should have a build kicked off here. If we would be so lucky, let that complete. There's that satisfying little green check mark. So now we're going to go into the projects, make sure that our issue is moved into in progress on our board. And then in our issue, we'll edit it to indicate that the first checkbox has been checked here. We'll just edit. And I think, if I recall correctly, this is how, nope. So from looking at previous times where I've done this, the issue looks like it's just that I need to not put a space before and after the X. And that gives us what we need. And then we will see you in the next video on upgrading Tailwind from 3 to 4 in our Rails application. To make sure you get that video, make sure to hit like and subscribe on this one. And thank you for watching. Feel free to add any questions or improvements that you might encounter in the comments, and we'll see you in the next one.
Code along on an end-to-end journey through the creation, design, and development of a Ruby on Rails application for managing tabletop role-playing games. We start from Rails new and will guide you along the journey of the entire lifecycle of the application. You'll get to see real-life, real-world problems and challenges as we try to deliver value for our users. Visit statelesscode.com to level up. Thanks for watching this Stateless Codecast. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and spread the word. You can follow us on social media at statelesscode. Until next time, keep coding and don't aggress against peaceful people or vote for others to do so on your behalf.
Hack the stateless code.
Nerd dice.